This episode is brought to you by Audible.com. For a 30-day trial and free audiobook, head to audibletrial.com/Ron Show. That's audibletrial.com/Ron Show for your 30-day trial and free audiobook today. Hey everybody, welcome to Movie House. Today, it's our Halloween Spectacular. I want to thank you for tuning in, joining us here. Today we're going to talk about a trilogy. Not just any trilogy, not a space trilogy, but the most important trilogy. That's right, we're going to be talking about the Romero Trilogy. Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, and Day of the Dead. Okay, can you get those off my face? Thank you. Jesus Christ. So while we're talking about these fantastic movies, not a bummer in the bunch, Alphonse is going over there and he's going to be dealing with the trick-or-treaters that come and keep them out of our hair. So we're going to be all set to go here. And we're going to start off with a little movie that came out in 1968, written by John Russo and George Romero, directed by Romero. It's called Night of the Living Dead.
Welcome to a night of total terror. Night of the living dead, the dead who live on living flesh. The dead whose haunted souls hunt the living whose bodies are the only food for these ungodly creatures. Night of the Living Dead. A bizarre adventure in fear. An experience in shock, more shattering than your strangest nightmare. Night of the Living Dead. A night with the dead who cannot die. A night of total terror.
Night of the Living Dead really redefined what zombies were. Up until that point, if you watched movies like White Zombie or I Walked with a Zombie and all that kind of stuff, it was really voodoo-based, and there was no flesh-eating going on. This movie swooped in, total ripoff of I Am Legend by Richard Matheson. Romero is very open about that, so don't try leaving a comment saying, well, you know, it's just a ripoff of I Am Legend by Richard Matheson. No, Romero is very blatant about that, and he couldn't have picked from better source material. Originally it was called Night of the Flesh Eaters, and there was the copyright issue we all know about. The movie's in public domain, so if you want to go watch the movie when we're done with this discussion, go right ahead and watch it. It's a great little film. There are problems with it, like every movie. The sound effects might not fit what's going on, but the tension, if you've never seen Night of the Living Dead, you need to go see it right now, because I don't want to spoil too many things. A lot of people think going in, Romero had this image of using a black guy as the lead, and while that would have been great, they just got the best actor that they could. Plain and simple, and everything just kind of snowballed from there. There's a story about him and either John Russo or Russ Striner driving the movie into town or something the night that MLK, so many Ks, was assassinated. So that's kind of like when they realized that something was gonna happen. It kind of set the trope up for the woman running away and oh no, and all that kind of stuff. Not the goriest picture. The zombie makeup isn't all that great. You do get to see a bare butt, which is fun. And there is the constant struggle with survivors, which sets the tones for most Romero movies, in that we screw it up ourselves, which is exactly what happens. We always screw it up ourselves. And It's definitely it's a great starter point for somebody who's trying to get into the zombie genre. It's black and white, so you're gonna have to deal with that. If you have a problem with that, then I don't know what to tell you. Movies were that way before you were born, Timmy. It's true. So it's definitely one to check out, and I highly, highly recommend that you do. And Alphonse, I thought you were supposed to take care of the trick-or-treaters. What? Out. I'll be right back.
Night. Of the living dead.
So it would appear that the trick-or-treaters ate my director. Not exactly what I was hoping for with this Halloween Spectacular. It's not. I can still hear him munching. He's not a small man, so nobody on this show is. Boy. So let's keep going, trucking along here. We got 2 more movies to get through. The next is the 1978 classic, in my opinion, classic Dawn of the Dead.
In 1968, George Romero brought us Night of the Living Dead. It became the classic horror film of its time. Now, George Romero brings us the most intensely shocking motion picture experience for all times. Dawn of the Dead. Night of the Living Dead has ended. Dawn of the Dead is here.
Get that room! It gets up and kills. The people it kills get up and kill.
They must be destroyed.
A lot of people say that the best movies ever made are things like Vertigo or Citizen Kane or things of that nature. For me, when it comes to horror, the Citizen Kane of horror is Dawn of the Dead. And yes, I understand some of the things are a little outdated, the way the mall is structured. You don't see malls like that anymore, and things of that nature. But the story is still true to its core. Just the social commentary is dripping off the walls. Commercialization, how everything in this world, we're zombies when we walk into those malls, and malls were just starting out back then. Written and directed by George Romero, tells the story of Fran and Flyboy and Roger and Peter, all escaping, and they find this mall. They get away, and they're living in this mall. They fortify it, and everything's going great for them until some people see that they're in the mall and they want to take what's theirs, and they won't let them take what's theirs. So it's a constant power struggle about who has the most stuff, and the person with the most toys in the end wins. Gore effects by Tom Savini, stun effects by Tom Savini, and Tasso, I can't pronounce his last name, so I'm not even going to try and ruin it. Like I said, some things are dated in it, obviously, because of when it was filmed, and that's kind of where society stops. But overall, this is by and large probably my favorite film. When I go to bed at night, it's the last thing on the wall I see is my poster for Dawn of the Dead. And I remember when I was younger and I would see the trailer for it, and it freaked me out until I finally saw it. And I realized that it's more of a comic book, but Romero's take on everything, even the zombie effects are a little, but the kills are great. I just can't say enough good stuff about this movie. This is, if I had to rate this thing, 5 trick-or-treaters that are eating my director out of 5. This is a masterpiece, plain and simple, classic, however you want to say it. go watch this movie. There are a bunch of different cuts. There was the Ultimate Edition that came out. There's a Dario Argento cut. Dario Argento let Romero come to Rome and write to get the script done. And he's got the European rights. There's a 4K edition coming out, just like there is with Night of the Living Dead. But it's just the Argento cut because the American theatrical release is still in legal dispute with Richard Rubinstein, the producer of the film. And when you see Dawn of the Dead on cable TV, like you see night or you see day, I'm pretty sure that's when hell will freeze over. If you believe hell exists. So, don't want to offend anybody. But if you haven't seen this movie, go on YouTube. There's the Mall Hours cut, which is everything thrown in. It's like almost a 3-hour version. And even that I love. The Argento cut, which is the European cut, takes out certain things. Like there's a pie fight at some point. That's gone. It's more of an action-driven based horror film. But all around a masterpiece in my eyes. And looking over there, it would seem that they are done eating my director and they are looking at me. So I'm going to go take care of some trick-or-treaters and I'll be right back.
On sight!
When there is no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth. Dawn of the Dead.
Well, all right. Whew, a couple of good swipes. Those kids' heads are a lot thinner than I imagined. Must be the public schools. Well, while I still have time, while I'm alone here, before I dispose of his body, because it's starting to smell really bad, we're going to watch the final, or talk about, rather, I wish we could watch, but we're going to talk about the final installment in the Romero Trilogy. Let's talk about 1985's Day of the Dead.
First, he created the most frightening film ever made. Then, he took his unique vision of terror one step further. Now, George A. Romero takes us out of the night, beyond the dawn, and into the darkest day of horror the world has ever known. Day of the Dead.
1985's Day of the Dead was the real ghouls like this one because the makeup effects are just really going all out for the gross out effect. This is his take on Reaganism. It's written and directed by Romero. For him to get the R rating and not be, or to even come up with the money rather, for this movie, he had to cut down the script. This was the Ben-Hur of zombie films, and he had to cut it down to a passable length. And I think there's it might have lost a lot of its charm. It's not one of my favorite zombie films. If it's on, I'll watch it. And sometimes I'll be in that mood where I have to watch Day of the Dead, and I'll watch Day of the Dead. It's not a bad film by any stretch of the imaginations, in my opinion. I know a few people out there who will differ with me. But it shows the complete breakdown of society. When we're at our there's scientists and there's military people, and they're trying to come up with a cure for the disease, as it were. And it's just the breakdown of that whole unit, the military and scientists and everything. And the cursing is out of control in this movie. The blood, the gore. I think Chef Brockett is in it as a zombie, if you know Mr. Rogers. So if you're my age and you remember Mr. Rogers, remember Chef Brockett. He's in it, and near the very end. And it's just kind of, I don't know. I really truly believe that this movie lost a lot when he cut out a bunch of stuff from the script. But that being said, I don't know how much of a giant zombie movie I'd want to watch like that. I mean, granted, there's the Dawn cut online that's ridiculously long, but this one, I don't know if I could sit there that long for this one. It didn't do as well at the box office. And if you watch the behind the scenes on the Shout Factory, the Anchor Bay release of Day of the Dead, the documentary, a lot of people in the cast will blame Return of the Living Dead coming out. They're apples and oranges, folks. Return of the Living Dead is basically a comedy. Great movie, but it's basically a comedy. This is a much more serious tone. I can't talk because there's little kids are trying to break into my home and eat me. So bear with me. I don't know. I don't know what the reasoning behind it not being as popular was. But it's check it out. I highly suggest you check out all three of these movies. Night is everywhere because it's in public domain. Dawn, you're probably going to have to go out and buy a copy just because you need to own it. You have to have this. And Day might show up on the Sci-Fi Channel, or I'm sure you could find it somewhere cheap. Just so you can satisfy your gore urge. Gore urge. Yes, your urge for gore. Yes, which I'm seeing plenty of right now. Yeah, I would definitely suggest all three of these movies. Have a little marathon. If your neck of the woods hasn't turned into crap like mine has. And they're coming through the doors, so we'll be right back.
George A. Romero's Day of the Dead, the most eagerly awaited day in horror film history.
Okay, gang. Thanks for watching the first annual Halloween Spectacular here on Movie House. Hopefully there'll be an episode next week. Some of these kids' costumes are just ridiculous too. And who brings a pillowcase anymore? That one's just too old. Well, they're breaking the door down, so I don't have much more time left here. I want to thank everyone for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the video. And there's the Patreon if you want to chip in for my funeral costs here in a minute. I'm a big man. It's going to cost a lot to cremate me. Boy. I don't know what to do. You know, George Romero used to shoot for Mr. Rogers? Yeah. He shot the tonsillectomy episode when Mr. Rogers had his tonsils out. He shot all the gore and stuff. Kind of like a little precursor to things that are bound to come. Hopefully we'll see you next week.